Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you different ways that you can switch apps on your iPhone. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about it, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. Now, when you're using your iPhone, you're using just the app that you see on the screen. So, of course, you often need to switch apps. There's several different ways to do this. First, let's look at the simplest and most versatile, and that's to simply return to the home screen and choose a new app there. So here I am in the Calculator app. Now, getting to the home screen depends on which type of iPhone you've got. If you have an iPhone with a home button, you just press the home button. If you don't, if you've got one with Face ID, then you're going to see this bar at the bottom of the screen. What you need to do is tap and drag up, and you'll end up back at the home screen. And from there, you can choose a different app. Now, if that's the only way you know how to do it, that's perfectly fine. It works. But there are ways to shave off a few seconds by using more sophisticated techniques. One is the app switcher. So if you do the same thing and tap and drag from the bottom, but instead of quickly going up as far as you want, you kind of stop in the middle there. And notice you've got apps here to the left. Release here, and now you're using the app switcher. The app switcher shows you your current app to the right and then other apps, and you can swipe to drag between them. You can actually switch to any app you want as long as you can see it. So if I wanted to switch to the Messages app here, I can now just tap on Messages and it brings that up. This has the advantage of not taking you all the way back to the home screen. You can go right from one app to another. It also has a big advantage in that it shows you the content, not just the apps themselves. So for instance, I could look here and see the content in Safari. This is very useful in situations where you don't remember which app you're using. You just remember the content. For instance, you may be reading an article. Was that in the news app? Was it in some social media app? Maybe it was in Safari. You can now see the content and not really worry so much about the app itself, and then go specifically to the content, not the app. Now, you can also do this if you've got an iPhone with a home button. The trick is to double press the home button and then it brings up the app switcher. Now, a third way to go between apps only works if you do have Face ID, no home button. Instead of swiping up from the bottom, you're going to go right. So if I go to the right there, it goes to the previous app. And you can keep swiping like that. This is a really handy way to quickly get to the previous app. It doesn't work as well as the app switcher for getting to an app several back, as you have to keep swiping. And most articles and videos you would find will stop there and show just those 2 or 3 different ways to switch apps. But there are more ways to do it. 2 of them use the accessibility functions on your iPhone. So we're going to go to Settings here, and under Accessibility, we're going to look for Touch. And then here we're going to turn on Assistive Touch. Well, let's look at the options here. You have got a single tap, double tap, and long press. And you could set these to do various things. So we could set the single tap to, for instance, go home. This will take us to the home screen. But notice you can also choose the app switcher here. So with Assistive Touch turned on and set for a single tap going to the app switcher, now you'll see this circle that you can move around on the screen and place around any edge. Now, we've set it to one tap. If I tap it like that, you can see it brings up the app switcher. So you could do single tap as the app switcher and double tap, for instance, as the home screen. This is particularly useful for those that don't do well with the tap and swiping gestures on the iPhone. I know there are plenty of people that use them expertly, but also there are plenty of people that have trouble with them. And it's sometimes easier to have that Assistive Touch button on the screen and just be able to do a simple tap to get to one of these. You could also set these up to go to what's called the menu. So you choose Open Menu here. And then the menu itself will bring up 6 buttons and you can customize those. So this one here is set to the home screen, for instance. I can change this one here to go to the app switcher. And then when I tap on this, instead brings up those buttons, and I can now access the app switcher from one of those buttons, but maybe home from another. Also note another option here is to, instead of going to any of those, is to choose Spotlight. If you select that, Then you can get to Spotlight, which you can get to it always from the home screen by swiping down. And then it will show you suggestions, which usually include your most recently used apps. So it works really great as an app switcher. But the problem is it doesn't work inside of an app. You can't get to Spotlight with a swipe down in the middle like you can on the home screen. But with Assistive Touch now, I've got this button here and I can tap on that and now it brings up Spotlight even from within another app. Now, instead of Assistive Touch, another accessibility feature that will help you switch apps is back tap. So this is at the bottom of the touch section of accessibility. You could set back tap, the double tap or the triple tap to go to home. You could have it go to the app switcher or you could have it go to Spotlight. So you can use any one of those three options with either a double tap or triple tap on the back of your iPhone to quickly switch between apps using one of those methods. Now, of course, another option for switching apps is simply to use Siri. If you're already using Siri for other things, then you can use it to jump from one app to another. If you go into Settings and you go to Siri and Search, here's where you would customize whether it's listening for keywords there or use some other way to activate Siri. And then you could use Siri to jump from one app to another. So here I am in the Notes app. If I then activate Siri, I can go to another app. Launch Calculator. Now there's one more method I want to show you, but this doesn't work to go to just any app. It will help you in some situations to go back to the previous app. Now sometimes when you're in an app, it switches you to another app automatically, say to view a piece of content. Now let's say as an example, you're in Safari and you're viewing some content, but you could also be viewing content in a social media app or in an email message, anywhere. And there's a link that goes to another app, in this case the App Store app. So when I tap here, it goes to the App Store. Now, if maybe you weren't paying close attention, you might not have noticed that you switched apps. You're no longer in Safari. You're in the App Store app. Well, there's an indicator to actually show you that. If you look at the top left, you'll see this little button that takes you back to the previous app. First, you can use this as an indicator that yes, you did indeed switch apps. You're no longer in Safari because it actually says go back to Safari here at the top. But also you can tap on this and it'll actually take you back. It'll take you back to whatever the app was. So for instance, if you're in the Mail app here and you tap on a link in a mail message, notice how you can go back to Mail at the top left. A lot of times when we want to switch apps, we're just doing this. We're switching back to the app we were previously using before we tapped on a link. So looking for that in the upper left-hand corner is really handy. So every method I've shown you here has its advantages and disadvantages. For instance, going to the home screen allows you to go to apps that you haven't even used recently and just as easily as going to the previous app. Going to the app switcher allows you to go back several apps and view the content of each app. So you can recognize where you want to go by content, not necessarily by the app name. Swiping quickly along the bottom is great for going to just the previous app or maybe 2 or 3 back. Using the accessibility functions are great if you're not really good at these swiping gestures. And with Siri, you don't even need to tap the screen at all. And then looking for the back button at the upper left-hand corner allows you to easily get back to the previous app. So I hope you find one or more of these methods useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.